that's okay. Glad that you are here, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Shachar Gal, who
Hello.
is has become a friend of a friend of mine. Led he was my tour guide in Israel a few weeks ago when I went to sort of as I was saying, sort of just come to reconnect with the country in a post October 7th world. I happened to be there the week that the first the hostage deal was negotiated. The first hostages were released, and also the week that the Trump administration was inducted into office. So a lot has happened since I left. That was happening in the moment, and what was really compelling to me about learning with Shachar and traveling around the country with him is what he had to share in terms of, you know, we hear what we hear on the news, but what are the people on the ground feeling? The same thing we could ask in America too. Like, what's America really feeling like right now? It's complicated, and what I uh, what I think will be interesting for all of us, and you'll be able to ask some questions, is really how are Israeli citizens coping, dealing, feeling about their future, their present, and all the rest. So, without further ado, my pleasure to introduce Shachar, who will tell you a little bit about his own personal history. Thank you.
Shalom, everybody. So I'm really happy to be here. I had a great experience with your rabbi here, and we had a little group going on, and also it was really an interesting thing because she's being very modest, but they came at a rough time. They came at a time where it's tourists, only the gutsiest tourists are coming to Israel, and everywhere we went, like she could talk about how we went to Tzfat, like everything's closed down. Like a few vendors like, thank you for coming, great, thank you, we really want tourism. And like we went up north, we saw things, it was really an interesting thing. And so I I don't like talking about myself, but I know that nobody knows me here, so bear with me. I'm gonna say what I do and a little bit about myself, and then we can hopefully have a great conversation. And I've done this a couple of times, also over Zoom, also with lecturers in the U.S. And I find that the best thing about all of the conversations that I've had so far is I have the part that I talk about all the things that I think that you should be aware of and I think that would be interesting to you. And then we go on to the questions. And then everybody that asks a question throws us into a very different conversation, very different topics, and that is actually, I think, more interesting than what I'm gonna come up with. But I hope I'll lay enough of the groundworks to tickle you into asking a lot of interesting questions. So my name is Shachar, and I always have a session about my name where you do the Cha and then the Sha in the beginning and the R at the end. It's a very common name in Israel. Shachar. It's the name of the dawn in Hebrew. It's also a Canaanite god, so that's what I am, a Canaanite god in essence, in the inside. And I'm 45 years old. I live in Israel, born, raised in Israel. Went to the Israeli Defense Force when I was 18. Went to a youth movement. Maybe you know that youth movement, Habonim Dror. It's a
Yeah.
socialist youth movement that built 30 kibbutzim in Israel and 30s, but now it's almost extinct in the U.S. And then after the army, I turned tour guide. And after I became a tour guide, I encountered this thing maybe you heard about called birthright. Really kind of in the beginning stages of it. And I was a tour guide mostly for birthrights for the first 5 years of me being a tour guide. And after that, birthright, had me as the house guide, and they said, "Would you like to be a shaliach for us?" And so I came to Chicago, and I was a shaliach in Chicago for Birthright. And in the summers, I went to a camp. Maybe some of you have heard about this camp. It's called Camp Tavor in Indiana, and it's a Habonim Dror camp. So it's one of 8 that is like a really nostalgic ones. I saw the note that said that they were founded in 1945. Really cool stuff. I had my first daughter in Chicago, so she's an American citizen because that was before Trump. And then we came back to Israel, and it's really interesting. People in Israel are like, "Why'd you come back? Why'd you come back? I would stay." Which is Israelis love to do that. They all know why they're here, but they always love to complain about it. And I started a little company here. It's called Hands on Israel, and the company deals with tours, specifically tours for families, specifically tours for families with teens and young kids, because I'm an educator, always have been, always will be. So I'm gonna tilt my own horn here and share with you, wait, what am I sharing with you? This. And so I'm going to switch to, wait, this is the presentation I have for today. But how do I move this? Oh my God. Here, this is my website, handsonisrael.com, and I do a lot of different tours, and here bar mitzvah, and this is my really important tour in life. I don't know if you know this guy. This is Daniel Shapiro, the ambassador to the U.S. under the Obama administration, and he's from Chicago. I'm friends with him, with the family, and so I did a lot of trips with them. And maybe you know this site. It's called TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is where people review tour companies, if they suck, if they're really good. And let me tell you, working a lot with Jewish moms to get 5-star reviews, 218 5-star reviews by Jewish moms. Here, this is Doris, and this is Elliot from our tours. So this is what I do, trying to make Jewish moms happy. And let me tell you, it's really hard not to get a bad review eventually. Now, how do I get back? I'm sorry. I'm not Zoom friendly. Here, no share.
Two things I want to say that Lisa Siegel shared in the chat that you actually led her family in 2017. She's
really?
And,
oh my God.
And Ria went to have what did you what were you a part of Habonim Ria in 1945?
Yes.
Did you go to Tavor?
No, because I don't even know if there was a camp. And
Okay.
I did not go. There were not Jewish camps when I was growing up. So,
okay.
yeah, it was a long time ago.
Okay, I'm not sharing a screen now, right? I'm back to me.
You are sharing a screen. Can you unshare so that we can all see you?
How to unshare. How do I unshare? Oh my God.
You have to unshare. Come on, Shachar.
No, that's an interesting thing. Weird.
Okay.
Now do you see me?
No, I see you, but you're still sharing your screen. So can you go down to the I'm not sure how to help you because I'm not a whiz. Scotty, can you help him? Scotty, honey, can you unmute and explain to him how not
on
to
the
share?
bottom of your screen, if you scroll down, you'll see a thing where it says share. It's like a green arrow. If you click on that arrow, you should be able to stop sharing it. Or on the top, actually, on the top, yeah, I think that's the best way to do it.
That's what I did?
Yeah.
I'm still sharing, right? Am I?
Yeah. It should say you should be able to stop sharing it there.
Very weird. Stop sharing.
I don't know. There may be
Here's what I'm going to do. I got it. I just withdrew co-host permission.
Yeah.
And now he can't share anything. And now I will make it possible for him to share again.
Good. Wonderful.
Sorry.
Okay, so later I'll need to share the presentation. So that's a little bit about me, and that's what I've been doing for a very long time. And I wanted to start by talking about kind of the day of the 7th of October. you know. So I'm going from the past to the to today. So really, not exactly the 7th of October, but um, uh, my family is from different places in Israel. My wife's family is from, unfortunately, the kibbutz of Kfar Gaza. And the kibbutz of Kfar Gaza, if you know or not, was hit very, very hard on October 7th. And um, me and my wife and our kids and our whole family, we were there 3 weeks before on a Shabbat. And we were visiting my wife's uncle who lives there. And also, he has 5 children, beautiful, amazing children, and they're all married. They all have kids. So there were about 50 people in his backyard 3 weeks before the 7th of October. And his backyard, actually, there's the backyard, there's a grassy area, there's the fence of the kibbutz, and you could see Gaza from his house. And and I want to start by saying that this story ended, out of all the stories, okay, but it's one of the only ones that ended okay. And because we were there 3 weeks before, there's kind of an unspoken rule in Israel where, because Israel is so small, when you have a family and little kids, you try to spend, or you're very pulled from the different grandparents, one Shabbat and one grandparent, one Shabbat with another grandparent, and one Shabbat for yourself. It's kind of like what we did for a very long time. And so, in a way, in a very weird way, what happened is, because we were there 3 weeks before at his house, then the Shabbat of the 7th of October, not only were we not there, and all of my side of the family that doesn't live in Kfar Gaza, but also his side of the family, all of his kids, including the 2 girls and the grandkids that live in Kfar Gaza, were out of that kibbutz and visiting somewhere else. Even more, you know, kind of like miraculous, they both are kibbutznik women that are as secular as you can. They both married traditional to religious Orthodox Jews, and therefore, on that Shabbat, on that Friday before, they were already somewhere else and having that Shabbat somewhere else. And it ended up that him and his wife were there, and he is a very big kibbutznik guy. So he was like, at 5:30, he was already up. At 6:30, he was drinking coffee outside of his house, and he looked towards Gaza and he saw the terrorists coming. And he kind of counted 70 terrorists coming his way. And the story is that he's one of the only people that had a pistol on him. Most of the people didn't even have a gun or a pistol or anything. And so he was sure in 5 minutes, this is all going to be over, because that's what they told him always. That's what all of his life. He's 70 years old. That's what happened every time that there's a breach, if there ever is such an attack. What he didn't know is that there are 132 breaches in the wall, and there are thousands and thousands of terrorists that are going to overwhelm the whole army. And so he got into the security room with his wife without a key and a chain, and they held the door closed. He shot outside of the terrorists. He killed some. Eventually, 36 hours after, the Israeli Army Green Berets got to him and got him out safe and sound. But he basically told us, when I came out, I was stepping over bodies of friends from the kibbutz that I knew, and Kfar Gaza was hit very, very hard. Specifically, the neighborhood that got hit very hard was the neighborhood of the youngsters in Kfar Gaza, and his daughter Yali, that is now 23 years old. That's her age group. And basically, other than her and one more girl, there's all of that age group was either killed or taken hostage and brought back. So it's really it's creepy what happened there. But that's just to start us off, and what happened to me. And I wanted to tell a side story from this when this happened. At the morning of, one of the people in our family, another husband of my wife's sister is a Green Beret, and he got summoned to get to a helicopter somewhere, the way he knew that at one point it's going to happen in his life. And he was assigned to Kfar Gaza, and 36 hours after, he was one of the people that got his wife's uncle out of the security room. So like it's a crazy world that, you know, there was even a family tie to this eventually. So I wanted to start off by talking about how did we get to the 7th of October. And specifically, we want to talk today generally about, and this is the content, is what are Israelis thinking about? And so after telling you this little story about mine and a little bit about myself, I should, you know, put a disclaimer. Just like you can't say, what are Americans thinking about? Of course, you can't say what are Israelis thinking about. And so I kind of have to break down, in order to give you the different opinions in Israel, to the different branches of our politics, of what are people coming from. And then you can start saying, kind of like how if I would ask, you know, what are Americans thinking about, I would kind of have to break it down to the Republicans, to the Democrats, to the, you know, to the Trump fans, to the non-Trump fans. And then you could start to understand kind of like what are the vibes underneath the surface. And so in order to get there, to talk about what are Israelis thinking about, I should go a little bit back, not all the way to the beginning of the conflict, but I should talk about the current administration, which I think you all kind of know is very different than most of the governments we've ever had in Israel. And really, I don't know how much you've accompanied the politics in Israel, but in recent years, there has been a lot of turmoil, especially around if you're for Bibi or against Bibi, and there were elections after elections after elections that led eventually to a point that the last time that there were elections, Bibi went further and further and further than what he did before, and went and formed a government that is really based on, and I'm going to try and oversimplify it if it's okay by you, into three legs. And that's what makes this government very different than any other government that there was. One leg, of course, is the Likud party that he's in charge. And the Likud party has a glorious history. Menachem Begin started it in 1977 with Ariel Sharon. Maybe you heard about this, the late prime minister, war hero from the Yom Kippur War. And it was a liberal, right-wing party that was very democratic, elections, and people could state what their views are and debate between them. And there are a lot of similarities that I'll talk about that I think, okay, and this is going into politics in the US about what's happening with Trump and the Republican Party. It's what happened with Bibi and the Likud party is very similar, where really Bibi slowly chipped away at the Likud party, threw everybody from the Likud party that presented any threat to him throughout who am I thinking about? Gidon Sar, if you know, that was very big. Throughout his defense minister, Boogie Elon, that was an amazing defense minister. Throughout anybody else, and promoted people who were, in a way, yes man. You know, and these are my personal views. That's another thing to consider here, is that when we're talking about today, this is not a tour guide talking about recent, you know, about the Yom Kippur War and stating, you know, facts that were investigated. These are all my personal views. I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but you should know about me. Maybe I should put this in a disclaimer, that I am a center of left. I would call myself a follower of the late Yitzhak Rabin, and a person that believes in the two-state solution, and a person that believes in peace generally, anti-Hamas. But I'm trying to put my views aside and try to show you things as objective as possible, But there isn't total objectivity, and I'm sure when I say that he pushed away people that were regular people and filled it with yes men, I'm also stating my views. Maybe they're amazing people and I haven't seen it yet. Anyways, the Likud party under Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the legs of this government. The other leg of this government is the ultra-Orthodox. And the ultra-Orthodox in Israel are a minority. They used to be 5%, 4% of the population, and they've grown and grown and grown. In Israel today, they're 13% of the population. But in electoral power, they have a lot more power because people generally vote in Israel. 53 to 56% of the population vote in a normal vote, and the real graphs with the ultra-Orthodox is that they vote 80 to 85% because the rabbis say go and vote, and they understood it's in their benefit, so they're overrepresented in the parliament. And the ultra-Orthodox is, they have a lot of different views. I would state a few for you. One, they believe that Israel should be run by the rabbis. The other ones is that they're generally non-Zionistic, meaning they don't believe that the state of Israel should exist as a Jewish country, but the Jewish country should be run by the rabbis. But they do participate in the political game, and they try to leverage it to their advance. In their opinions, they basically say we see Israel as another kingdom or another government, just like the U.S. or the U.K. or anywhere else, and we need to participate in politics. But if you really ask them, they don't really believe that a Jewish state should happen. Not at least the Messiah would come, when we do enough mitzvahs. I'm hoping I'm not, giving you guys things that you didn't already hear about. This is the common view. Of course, there's variations between different ultra-Orthodox parties, but that's generally the case. And because of that, I'll mention one more thing that's really big in Israel today, and a big heated debate, is that they do not want to participate in the Israeli Defense Force protecting Israel, because in their eyes, they should not be participating in it because they are not Zionists. And that and they also believe that basically they're doing more praying in the yeshivas, which is really something. If an ultra-Orthodox guy and a secular guy meet, if I'll come and talk to an ultra-Orthodox guy, one of the things that really blows people's minds is that they would say, I'm doing more for Israel than you're doing. Why? Because I'm praying for Israel. And if you look at the Bible, then you'll see, and you'll see that really praying is a lot more important than that. Huh? Anyways, so that's the ultra-Orthodox. Also, the ultra-Orthodox kind of keep to themselves. Also, they don't participate very much in the general workforce, where not a lot of them work, or less than 50% of them work. There's different graphs showing different things, but that's also another thing. And they also kind of act like their own separate communities, and kind of do not engage with anybody else. What's interesting about the ultra-Orthodox in the realm of politics is that they have no problem getting Social Security and kind of exploiting the system to their benefit, and getting discounts and in everything. And also that they I lost my train of thought. Oh, I wanted to say that they basically believe that they are bipartisan, or they were for many, many years. For many, many years, they even participated in the Rabin administration, and they referred to two-state solution because they basically said, we're out of it, guys. You guys want to give back land, go to war, go to peace. We don't really care. In recent years, they've gone and more to the right. But even today, they're saying, and that's their big threat on Benjamin Netanyahu, if you won't give us what we want, meaning try to change the Supreme Court appeals to not be in the army, try to win things for yeshiva boys, try to do this, try to do that, we'll go with Benny Gantz, your opponent, that is maybe, or Naftali Bennett, that would be kind of lefty, because nobody is lefty like the Labor Party they used to be, but we'll go with your opponent and they'll give us what we want. And so they're not opposed to going with the left. It's not that they were always gung-ho on the right. And so they are another part of this government. Then the third part of the government is the different settler parties that skyrocketed towards this administration. And also Bibi put them together. Bibi took the kind of like the craziest right wing in Israel, put them together. One that maybe you know, main guy, parliament member, used to be parliament member, now resigned, Itamar Ben-Gvir, and the settlers are for annexing the West Bank, and they're against the two-state solution. And when you ask them what's their solution, they'll dance around it, you know, and this is me again saying my centralized views. What they really want is what we're always, blamed to be, like an apartheid state. And what they really want is to really be an apartheid state without saying we're an apartheid state. They really want to annex the West Bank without giving the Palestinians in the West Bank the rights, and because they're afraid of what happened in Gaza would happen there. But like that's what they're going for, without saying it, because they know if they'll say it, everyone would be opposing. Anyways, why am I talking about all this? Because once this government got together, I hope I have you guys, because I'm seeing your faces, but I'm not sure if I'm making sense. You guys are with me? I'm going to give lots of time for questions and everything. I really want to hear your views and everything. I'm just laying out some things that we could talk about, and the way I see things, but really I want to hear from you how you see it later on, and we could debate back and forth, and I love that. Anyways, once this government got in office, then it's basically for a lot of the people who are lefty Democrats in Israel or centralized, they saw kind of their worst fears come true, because what they truly started doing from the get-go is changing the whole system, moving a lot of the wealth into the ultra-Orthodox, the settlers. The treasury minister became a settler, and he said, I don't really care about the treasury, you know, Bezalel Smotrich, I care about the settlements, and so I'm going to find any way to give money to the settlements and to the ultra-Orthodox. And also they went to the whole judicial reform. And so the judicial reform, really interestingly, started only after elections. Before the elections, if you look, and smart Israelis looked before, even right-wing ones, looked at what was the thing that Bibi Netanyahu ran for before elections. He ran for lowering the economical problems for Israelis with families, of improving security. He never said anything about judicial reforms. And then once they got elected, that became like the most important thing. And the Supreme Court is very lefty, and we've got to change it. And one thing behind the scenes is that one of the biggest things, or a few of the rules they were trying to change, were the rules that prevented the Supreme Court from canceling laws that came into injunction with constitutional laws. And here's where I need to make a side note. We don't have a constitution. We have the Declaration of Independence in Israel, but we have constitutional laws. And very much they cover everything, almost everything your constitution has, or most of it. One of the reasons we don't have a constitution is because if eventually you'll have a constitution, you'll have to tackle the hot potato, which is who is Jewish and who's not Jewish. And nobody's really willing to do that. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we don't have a constitution. But one of the biggest things is that if you want to annex the West Bank and you don't want to give the Palestinians their rights, you can't do it if you let the Supreme Court cancel every rule you make. And so they went to a whole judicial reform in order to cancel all of the rules, and mainly that one, so that when the time comes and we'll annex the West Bank, then we can do it and disregard with all of the things the lefty judges would say. I hope I'm making sense. Eventually, a lot of what happened with this administration led to a lot of how our enemies saw us as weak, as vulnerable, as and also I'll talk about what the right wing says. The right wing says that when the judicial reforms happened, there was a lot of rallies, a lot of dismay, a lot of pilots signed a letter saying, I'm not going to volunteer. I should explain about that. When you're a pilot in the Israeli army, you're a pilot till the age of 45. From the age of 45 onwards, you don't have to volunteer, but it is expected that they put millions and billions into training you to be the best of the best of the best out there. You are our ace in the hole we're counting on to attack Iran, even though we'll never attack Iran. And so you're expected to volunteer till the age of really till you can't see anymore. And so the pilot said, well, I'm not going to refuse orders, but from the age of 45, if this government's going to be so right-wing that it annexed the West Bank, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to volunteer. And so our enemies saw this and also said, well, Israel's weak, or that's what a lot of the Bibi supporters say. And so it all went to a lot of clashes that took our eyes off the ball. Also, another thing that happened is that Netanyahu, over the years, and you probably heard time and time and time again, gave Hamas money because the whole concept is that Hamas is deterred. We went to rounds and rounds and rounds of attacking Hamas. They're getting money from Qatar. Now they're the big brother. Now they're trying to lick their wounds because they can never attack us. We set up a wonderful, amazing big wall that would keep them in, and they would never, ever, ever try to attack us. That kind of exploded in our faces. And so that all led to the 7th of October. I hope I'm making sense so far. Give me some nods so I'll know I have something to work with. And maybe Marcia, you want to lead us a little bit and ask some questions or tell me where you want this to go.
Yeah, no. First of all, thank you. Even hearing this again from you was really helpful. It is so complicated. I love that you pointed out, by the way, just that, when Netanyahu ran last time, there wasn't a word about judicial reform. This was sort of after he was in office. And I just think that all of us here really understand that in a different way. Just, like how elections work and who thinks what they're voting for is happening. And then I guess one of the things I'm hoping that we'll be able to look at with you is, I mean, obviously we saw many Israelis very upset about, this is pre-October 7th, all the protests and stuff about judicial reform that was leading up to, that was prior to October 7th. Obviously some of whom might have cast their ballot for this man were like, wait a minute, this is not what we thought we were electing you for. That's an interesting piece of this. I'd love to hear more of that. But I also do want to, I think before we go on, I just want to say maybe we'll take 3 questions. We'll just ask the questions and then Shachar can sort of address them. So that would, for the rest of this time, we're going to open up next time just so that you all know, I hope you'll come back next week, talk a little bit more about the dynamics between Israel and America, how people understand that. We won't focus on that today, but why it was in certain people's best interest to convince them that Biden was not an Israel supporter, which he was. I mean, like that was pretty obvious. So lots of things that'll be more of next week's conversation. But does anybody have a question now, sort of inspired by what Shachar has shared up until this moment? And so Ria, we'll take. So Shachar, maybe you want to write them down, and then we'll get them, and then you can sort of answer them in order. Go ahead, Dal.
Okay, so it's sort of a question and a statement that both the United States and Israel are entering into colonialism, and that with Israel, Netanyahu glossed over what he really wanted to do and covered it up with other concepts that he's been promoting. And what they're doing is taking over land and sucking up the what do you call it, the resources. And Trump is doing the same thing, that they want to go into Ukraine, colonial power, suck up the resources, use the local labor. And it is, I am so furious I want to wring their necks. And so this the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israel networks that have existed in the United States have now spoken, and they're not wrong about what they're saying. And so I don't know where we go from here. I'm totally disgusted and depressed.
Thank you, Ria.
I'm sorry to give you make it feel pretty shitty.
That's important. Scotty, you had a question? Shachar, this is my husband, Scott. Scott.
Really? Okay,
Hey,
man.
nice to meet you.
Why didn't you come with us, man? It was fun.
Next time.
Maybe next time. Yeah, I hope so. I do want to ask, sort of, on the other side of Netanyahu, given all the protests against the judicial overhaul, and then completely interrupted by the horrible tragedy of October 7th and the ensuing war, is there any consolidation around a center-left leader, or is it what I'm seeing is just completely fragmented? There's no center on the left at all.
That's
Good
something
question.
too. Any other questions? Yes, Lisa. Go ahead. Yep, you, Lisa.
Hi, my question is not really about the politics. I really wanted to I would like to hear from Shachar more about how just everyday people, his friends, his family, people that he knows, how they're coping, and how, you know, the Israeli Arabs are coping, the ones that he works with, the ones that he knows personally, you know, in the aftermath. And I'd also like to know, I hear a lot about the, you know, being a tourist versus going and volunteering and helping out, and what are the needs now? That's what I would really like to hear.
Excellent.
Okay, so I have about 2 hours on only these three questions or things, but I'll try to make it short. Okay, so Ria, let's talk a little bit about colonialism, and this sends me into the lecture I gave about the conflict, and I want to share the screen again, but
Okay.
I'll get out of it. Okay,
I'm gonna make it. Hang on. Yeah, you
really.
can.
Exactly. So really, this is what I wanted to show here. Just a minute. Good. Okay. Do you all see the presentation instead of me? Okay,
Yes.
so basically, the presentation shows a couple of different things. And Ria, I want to talk about colonialism, but I want to mention a couple of things before. So this is my lovely family. This is my wife, Lee, my daughter, Ofer, that was born in the U.S., my daughter, Noah, and Ehud, Udi, we're regular people, I think. We buy ice cream, we eat ice cream, and we live in Israel. And really, talking about the colonialism in Israel, I think, and this is something that I'm keen on talking about. Maybe Trump and the Ukraine, and there's resources and things. I'm pretty sure that when Trump basically talks about how he's going to make Gaza into like an amazing place of real estate, it's a little bit for negotiations, and I do want to explain something that I think that a lot of people in the world don't. I want to go back a little bit into the beginning of Zionism. So in the beginning of Zionism, here, this is not it. Just a minute. Here, the beginning of Zionism, really, Jews came from Europe, came from lots of different places, and in the beginning, were presented with this map. Do you guys know this map, the partition map of Palestine? This is a map that was shown to Jews by the British in 1947. And this was when the British wanted out of the land of Israel, out of Palestine. So they suggested to the Jews an amazing program called "You Wanted a Country, You'll Get 3 countries instead." And that map showed in the blue, greenish, a Jewish country, in the orangey part, an Arab country, and in the white. Do you know why they put Jerusalem and Bethlehem at the white? Anybody? They put it because the idea was that we want to bring to a vote in the UN so that this country would be split into a Jewish state, that would be the green, an Arab state, and the white would be international under the UN. And it went for a vote on the 29th of November, 1947, and 33 votes were for, 11 against, and 8 abstaining. And most of the world voted on this map. Okay, and then we went to a war. It's called the Independence War in Israel, the Nakba in the Arab world, and we took this green area here on the left, this green area. And you know what's missing from the green area? What is this?
Gaza.
This is Gaza. This is where Gaza was. And so Gaza was actually in the hands of the Egyptians. And we didn't have the West Bank. The West Bank was in Jordan. And we didn't have the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights were in the hands of the Syrians. And at that time, Gaza became the packed area that it was, because a lot of Arabs that were in Palestine, Israel, whatever you want to call it, ran away when they lost to Gaza, that was in the hands of the Egyptians. Now, at the time, the West Bank was in Jordan, Gaza was in Egypt. The war was over. We signed non-aggression agreements. And of course, the Egyptians came to the Palestinians and said, hey, you're our brothers. You want to live in peace, and you're Muslim, we're Muslim. We'll give you Gaza and create a country of Palestine to your own. Of course, the Jordanians came and said, okay, you want Palestine? Great, you'll have Palestine. No, they didn't. Why didn't they? Because in the Middle East, nationalism was not a thing. Empires ruled, and nationalism was not a big deal. And the Egyptians said, shut up, you're in Gaza. You can't even leave. We're not going to give you citizenship, even. You're residents of Egypt and citizens of Gaza, and you can't even go to Cairo and Alexandria. The Jordanians were a little bit better than the Palestinians. They gave them citizenship from the beginning, but of course they didn't give them a country of their own. Actually, maybe you heard about a small organization called the Palestinian Liberation Organization. You heard about them? That was led by Arafat for a very long time. You would think that they started in 1967 when Israel took the Golan Heights, the West Bank, and Gaza, and all of the Sinai from the Egyptians. But no, they started in 1964. In 1964, we didn't have all that. We didn't have Gaza. We didn't have the West Bank. So why is the Palestinian Liberation Organization started in 1964? What are they liberating from? The rest of Israel. They basically, from the river to the sea, people don't know that. They wanted to liberate everything. That's where they got established. They actually got established in Jordan. And eventually, we got to a peace agreement. We got eventually here, I'm going to show this here. You know this picture? Wait a minute. Over here. Who's this guy, you know? This guy's Anwar Sadat. This is Menachem Begin. This is Jimmy Carter, the late Jimmy Carter. And in 1979, they started negotiating. And in 1981, they signed a peace agreement where we gave back, look at this. Ria, you're looking at this? You're talking about colonialism. All of the Sinai Peninsula to the Egyptians, other than the small piece of Gaza. Why didn't we give Gaza back to the Egyptians? Because they didn't want it. Why did they say no to Gaza? It was there to begin with. Why didn't they want Gaza? Because they didn't want the Palestinians. because in
Right.
the Arab world, the Palestinians were considered instigators, and they didn't like them. They didn't want to give them anything. They didn't want their beaches, fronts, and everything. They said, keep it to yourself. And actually, Israel, in my eyes, was very stupid to say, okay, we'll take it. You know, we should have insisted on them taking Gaza. And so that's something that I think that is not known for a lot of woke people around the world, that really the whole Arab world around us did a lot for the conflict other than Israel with not treating the Palestinians well, and not giving them any other country that they want. It's not only Israel. And so that's a little bit of what I want to say about resources and anti-Semitism and colonialism. Of course, there's, you could talk about this forever and ever, but those were a couple of different points. Ria, to your question, I'm sure we could go on with this. I just wanted to give you that. Moving on to Scott, if that's okay with you guys. I'm sorry, because I don't want to get too confused.
Go ahead.
So, Scott, there is nothing that now you guys wait, I'll stop sharing. Here is where you stop sharing. Yeah, I got it. Scott, I'll tell you from the bottom of my heart, there is nothing more that I would want to see than a collaborative effort of my dear left wing, the fragments of Rat Rabin left that was glorious, that was amazing, that in a way kind of mostly started this country with David Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir, and a lot of glorious and Shimon Peres, and is now for a very long time shattered into pieces. And so I'll talk about the 3 or 4 contendants to be the left-wing leader. And so, first of all, the Labor Party. Over the years, the Labor Party kind of committed political suicide. Slowly but surely, they chopped off every head of labor, and they did it often, and they did it badly and poorly, and went down from Golda Meir after the Yom Kippur War, had 50 seats in the House. 50 seats after the Yom Kippur War, and she had the decency after there were rallies under her house where people showed, pictures of dead soldiers. She said, I can't go on anymore. My moral code doesn't let me go on anymore. I'm going to resign after winning elections. Eventually the Labor had 5 seats in the House. That was what they had last elections. And now picking up the slack, I know, it's terrible. Picking up the slack is an amazing guy called Yair Golan. Yair Golan is a colonel in the Israeli army, and he's all in all an amazing guy. Even people who hate his guts would say, I hate his guts. He's an awesome guy. I totally oppose his views. He's an awesome guy. And I'll tell you why they'll say it. Because on October 7th, Yair Golan, on his own accord, took his personal rifle and went down to Gaza, took calls from parents saying, my kid got kidnapped, my kid is hiding somewhere. He said, give me the pinpoints, got a crew together and went down to Gaza and risked his life to save people. And now Yair Golan went to a big move. One of the biggest things that destroyed labor in this recent elections is the refusal of the head of labor at the time, her name was Merav Michaeli, to merge with another left-wing party called Meretz. Maybe you heard about them. So labor is center left and Meretz is uber left. And so Meretz and labor were both getting very small, and they said, listen, if you won't merge, one of you is not going to pass. We have a minimum of 4 mandates in order to get into parliament. Underneath 4 mandates, all of the votes get cast away. And so Merav Michaeli, the head of labor, that was a very poor head of labor in my eyes, said, no, I don't want to merge because they're left of us. We're not going to look okay together. And really, potatoes, patatas, they both lost. And so what Yair Golan did was he started a party. He merged Meretz and Labor now, and he started a party. And how did he call his party? Anybody want to give me an idea, or maybe you know? The Democrats. So the Israeli Democratic Party has now, it's a year now since Yair Golan, I think a year and a half. But like that's what they're running. That's their ticket. They want to be great again. And so they're going for the Democrat Party in the United States. And they're saying, hey, we should merge, all of the left should merge into us. And in essence, that's the biggest problem. Then every leader of the left says, hey, of course I want a consolidated leader. I'm it. You should all join me. Okay? And by the way, a lot of them, other than Yair Golan, none of them wants to say I'm left. Because under many, many years of Benjamin Netanyahu, he basically made the term lefty to be kind of a curse. And so they're all saying, and this is something that started in Israel really a long time ago, where leaders have come up and started parties that eventually drew a lot of people from the Labor Party and said, well, we're not labor, we're not lefties, we're centralized. We have people from the right wing in Israel and the left wing. And because Bibi is so far right, then our party is generally going to replace Likud of Menachem Begin. And that guy, his name is Yair Lapid. Yair Lapid started Yesh Atid, there is a future. And for a long time, Yair Lapid was the main guy. And eventually he became together with Naftali Bennett, he became the second prime minister. They had a rotation. He never really got to the rotation. After Naftali Bennett's government fell apart, he was the prime minister for 6 months till the end of the term. So that's Yair Lapid. And he's a very known, well-respected figure in Israel. He's shown that he's for merges. He's for helping out. He's a brother in need. And very interesting, Yair Lapid is a secular Tel Aviv guy, and he had a pact with Naftali Bennett that's like a settler-oriented right wing, but still center-right. And they had what's called a Pact of Brothers, where that Pact of Brothers, ever since 2005, they coerced Netanyahu at one of his prime ministries to they said, we'll come into your government, both our parties together, if you won't let the ultra-Orthodox in. So they kind of coerced Netanyahu because they were very strong bonding together, and eventually that bond together yielded their victory in the elections before this election. And for a year and a half, I swear, it was the most technocratic, easygoing, balanced government I've ever had, in my lifetime, till it collapsed. And much of it collapsed because Naftali Bennett's party fell apart. So that leads me to another guy that is, in a way, out of all of the people I just talked about, the person who has the most amount or most likelihood to win over Netanyahu is Naftali Bennett. That was already Prime Minister of Israel, more right wing, the left wing. And so he's basically out of politics now, and he just announced he's going back, and he has kind of like the popular vote. So ever since he announced he's coming back, and he hasn't formed a party yet because his other party, Yamina, got disbanded after elections. All of the surveys in Israel are saying this is the chart. If there isn't a party with Naftali Bennett that has a big split between different leaders, and if Naftali Bennett comes in, he wins for sure, for now, because Netanyahu is known to be, a magician. In the last moment, he changes things. So that's Naftali Bennett. He also kind of represents the idea for a lot of right-wing central voters for a how should I say it, conservative, very reasonable right-wing guy, not the crazy settlers. Because Naftali Bennett is very known. For instance, I'll give you an example. You guys mind me giving you a side story? At one point, a long time ago, before the craziness of the settlers we see now, there was one of the first Jewish terrorist acts that there were. Maybe you heard about the killing of the Wabsha family. There was a Jewish terrorist group, mainly youngsters, and they went into an Arab village. I think it's like 10 years ago already, and they threw a Molotov cocktail bottle and they burned down a whole family and killed a baby. And at that point, Netanyahu was in control, and everybody were basically talking about this incident, and the Shin Bet, our secret services, arrested people and started torturing them to get a confession, like we do with terrorists. Now, Naftali Bennett, at that point, kind of represented the settlers. So a lot of families that of the kids that were interrogated came to him and said, come and tell them they can't do that. They can only do that to Arabs, not the Jews. And he took like 3 or 4 days. He didn't say right off the bat, but after 3 or 4 days, he came in front of his audience and said, I have to say something to you that you won't like. If these guys really killed people, they're not settlers in my eyes. They're terrorists. And terrorists, you should torture, you should get a confession out of them, you should put them away for life. And his base didn't like it at all, but he kind of showed his backbone of standing up to his base and saying, there is a line between settlers and crazy people. I put them in the crazy people, which a lot of settlers today are not saying, most of their parties are not saying, and settlers can do whatever they want. So that's Naftali Bennett. And last but not least is Benny Gantz. Benny Gantz was a chief of staff of the Israeli army, and for many, many years, he was considered the biggest replacement for Netanyahu, and it didn't work. It didn't work. He tried. He even signed a deal with Netanyahu so that Netanyahu would be first and then he'll be second. Netanyahu, being Netanyahu, tricked him and went to re-elections and did all that. So all of them have the potential of becoming a leader. Scott, your idea is my idea. They should all come together. I have a better idea, by the way. No, seriously, I'm joking, but I'm not really joking. I think they should really all sit down, get their asses together, and kind of make a plan to say, we're all in favor of this guy being prime minister. Benny Gantz is going to be, the defense minister in the next government. Yair Lapid is going to be foreign minister. This guy's going to be that. This guy's going to be that. And split everything between them and come to the voters with a balanced, ready-made government. I really think that would win over Netanyahu no matter what he does. And I really think they won't do that because their egos are bigger than their love for Israel, unfortunately. So that's my answer to you, Scott. And I'll go to Lisa, and then I'm going to open it up to questions and come back. So, so I do want to share the screen again. Lisa, you asked about regular people, about what is going on with the Arab Israelis. And tourism and common life. I got the whole night to talk about this. I just want to start off by mentioning some of the people that I know that died on October 7th, and then go on to telling you more of kind of my surroundings. So I want to share the screen again, and I want to talk about a few things. So really, this is a family photo of me in the back. They don't really like me and my family. And this is my wife, my son, and this is the whole combined families. And out of everybody, this is Dudi Doron and Orly Doron that were in the security room in Kfar Aza for 36 hours. And most of the kids in this picture, other than my kids, are their grandkids. And they were all in Kfar Gaza 3 weeks before. And here's their daughter that basically lived in the neighborhood that got attacked most, and her kids. And let me tell you, I thought about this bad scenario many, many times, and thank God they survived. On the right, this is Idan. That's the Green Beret that came and saved duty. So I told you, craziness in the essence. And really, I looked at this picture many times and said, if we were on October 7th, if we were on that Shabbat there, knowing what I know today, I don't think most of us would make it. Like most of the people in this picture would be gone. Seriously, and that kept me out a lot of nights, and that's worth a while to explain. My son Udi has special needs. He needs a nanny. He needs consistent care. So he's in a special needs nursery. And when he came back home, we had found him a nanny. We looked for a nanny for a very long time, and we couldn't find one. And we had a cleaning lady. The cleaning lady, her name was Nechama, and we said, "Well, Nechama, we tried to look for a young, girl after the army. We nobody wants the job. We really need a good nanny for Udi. You raised 5 kids. Do you think you have it in you to, spend afternoons with him?" And she said, "Yeah, of course." And it was for 3 years. It was the best. It was really the best. And Nechama came and was with Udi. And Nechama has 5 boys. All of them are older. The last one, Yogev, was in the army. And on October 7th, Yogev Aharon, her son, was in the Kisufim base, one of the bases that was attacked on October 7th, and he was shot down. And my son, we didn't talk to him much about this, but a lot of times Nechama would take my son home with her, and she would, Yogev would be there from the army with his gun, and he had a motorcycle. My son is crazy for motorcycles, so he doesn't know, but we knew him, and from that point on, us and Nechama were family. We came to the funeral. We came to visit. I always bring my son to come and visit her. She's always happy to see him, but she even suggested maybe I'll be his nanny again, but she doesn't have the will to do it. If you guys remember, there was the Nova Party. The Nova Party had a lot of youngsters going there. This is David Abramov. He's a friend of mine. I met him through our daughters. We both had daughters 3 years old. From 3 to 5, they were joined at the hip, and I was always at David's house. He has 4 small children, and his daughter came to me, or I went there. And one of my visits to his house, all of a sudden I saw this guy. This guy Lidor was 17 at the time, and I'm like, "Who the hell are you? I've never seen you before." And David said, "Yes, this is my son from previous marriage. He is 16. He lives with his mom in the U.S., and he came to visit us." Well, 4 years passed. I didn't meet up with David for a long time. It turns out that his son is at 18. He said to his mom, "Listen, I'm 18. I'm an adult now. I want to go and live with my dad. I want to try it out." And he came, and because his dad was a DJ, he said, "I want to become a DJ also." And he even had a few parties. He started to make his way, and eventually he was at the Nova Party, and he was gunned down. He was in one of the security rooms next to the bus stations, and he even sent a photo to his parents. "I'm okay. I'm in the security room," because what they thought they should be afraid of was the rockets at the time. So he was like, I'm in a security room, no problem." And terrorists came and they killed him. He was 20 years old. And I have to tell you that, I told Marcia this. I lost contact with him, 3 years ago before this happened. And I talk about him, I talk about his dad, and I haven't reached out because I was stunned for the beginning of the war. And then later on, I tried to tell myself, you should go. And I don't know what I'm going to tell them, because I lost touch with them. But I feel their pain, and he was just 20. He wanted to have a good time. So I'm not just telling you these stories to make you feel sad for me or something like this. Every person in Israel has people that he knows, or has relatives that died, or has friends that died. This is such a small country that it hurts very bad. And I can talk about how also there's a whole I don't know if you know this, but there's a whole study of PTSD, and also that shows that you don't have to actually be in the place in order to get PTSD in certain times. I feel that in the first 2 weeks leading from the 7th of October onwards, I was crazed. I was in front of the TV till 4 in the morning. At the first, if you remember, the first 3 days, there were still terrorists in Israel. There was still an infiltration. This is, and a lot of times they talk about and compare the, September 11. I think it was much more for us Israelis, because it was not only a terror attack, it was an ongoing infiltration where we heard real time about messages of people, where we saw an infiltration of terrorists that our army could not stop. And we also have a background. This whole country has a background of the Holocaust and never again. And we see this unfolding, something that we never thought is going to happen ever in our lifetime. And it rolled into a whole war where we started having casualties from the beginning. So it was not only a terror attack, but also a devastating event that went opposite everything we were based on. I'm 45 years old. I was 17 years in reserves in the army, 3 years in the army, and never had I ever thought that it could come to this. It broke something in my mind of what is Israel, of what Israel, can and can't, what can happen to my family and can't. It was something very instrumental that I don't think people understand in the US. When you measure only the death toll and how much the Palestinians and the death toll of Israelis it doesn't really show what happened to us Israelis in our minds. And so I remember I would go to bed like 4 or 5 in the morning with something under my pillow, so that if terrorists would come, and I made a key to my security room so that if terrorists would come, which was, delirious, because there were no terrorists that were coming to my door in the center of Israel, but I still did it because it was a nutty time. And so that was the beginning part. But ever since, this has become a part of our lives. And if I can mention, moving forward to today, which is, there was a lot of healing and a lot of different things that happened. But for instance, I can give you another example, that what you're seeing on the news about the Bibas family, about the children that were returned, is something really interesting, because not only is it hitting hard, or I think it's hitting hard in the world, but in Israel, what's happening is that we've gone so far from the war that we kind of slowly started to put that paranoia behind, and put that thing behind, and to focus on, okay, they're kidnapped, but we're going back to normality and everything. And when there's kids involved, and when there's a mom involved, it sends me and a lot of other Israelis directly into the horror footage from the 7th of October and the weeks after, something that I kind of blocked out, or managed to go about my day, because you have to, and sends me back to all of this. So it's kind of provoking the wound of what happened specifically today. And I can tell you that it is Monday. You know what's happening on Wednesday? on Wednesday, there is a funeral for that whole family together. And because everybody that I know, at least, wants to be in the funeral and can't, they've already announced that they're going to tell us where the cars carrying the coffins are going to go through. And I know thousands and thousands of people are, including me, are going to be on somewhere towards, showing them to their grave, which is crazy. A whole country doing that. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is, Lisa, and I don't want to over not address this, is I have a lot of Arab friends. I'm a lefty. I have Arab friends. I talk Arabic. Today I sat down with an Arab friend of mine that's that is works at the gas station, and the Arab Israelis are a part of the Israeli mentality, and they've actually been amazing, in this suffering, because they really have a lot of connections to the Palestinians in Gaza, a lot of affection to the Palestinians in Gaza, but they also are not crazy fanatics like Hamas, no matter how much the crazy right wing would try to show them to be. And my friends have told me, that's not Islam. Killing children, raping women, that's not Islam. And there are, I don't know if you know this, but there are, halachic verdicts, Muslim halachic verdicts that allowed Hamas members to do what they've done, which they said, oh, all the women are moms, and so they'll yield more soldiers, and all the kids are going to be soldiers. So therefore, you could kill all the women, you could kill all the kids. And my friends are like, that's bullshit. That's not Islam. That's craziness, and that doesn't qualify, and that's not in the laws of war. And Muhammad would not, pass these laws. And so Arab Israelis are very much against Hamas, and of course they hate what's happening to regular common Palestinian and kids and moms and others in Gaza, and they're suffering. But they kind of have a very complicated message in the Israeli mentality, and the fact that they've stood by us at this time of need is a big deal. And the crazy right wing fanatics wanted them to riot, wanted them to show, oh, their true colors, and now they're going to join Hamas. And Hamas also expected them to do so, and they haven't. So I think that that's a very interesting thing to discuss. You talked about tourism and getting back to normal life. It's hard, I'm a tour guide, and tour guides need to be outside and roaming and explaining to people and talking to people, and I don't have any of that. Nobody likes me at home. Nobody wants to hear me speak. So it's great that I'm speaking to you guys, and I would really love tourism to come back. I think that it's a backbone of Israel. I think it's a huge connection between the Jewish world and Israel. I think that now's the time to strengthen us and to come and to have a tour guide, to have a hotel, to have a restaurant, to help. Just like Doris bought half of Israel when she was here. Right, Marsha? It helped. She helped a lot of people, single-handedly helped a lot of people.
Shachar, I want to say that what I want to do is, first of all, thank you for this beautiful conversation today. You really, I'm sure that everybody heard something that they didn't know before, needed to hear, felt that you gave us an opportunity to start to put a face on sort of, media fanaticism and stuff like that. It's very hard to separate that. What I did, everybody, is I put in the chat Shachar's email, and think about some things you'd like him to plan for and to discuss next week. This was two parts. There was something shared, Shachar, by FR. I don't know who FR is. He said this, and again, it would be good for you to don't address this now, but later. It said that Rabin told people that he'd be able to manage the Palestinians, that they would not want more territory, that they simply wanted their own state. It didn't work out. So anyway, there's no two-state solution. He or she shared their preference for having Gazans removed from Gaza. Interesting. I'd like to know what Israelis think about that. And that now that he says, now that the West Bank terrorist Arabs are attacking us, where do we go from here? So I think there's a lot packed into that question. And if you want to copy that and sort of think about how you would sort of open, that conversation, that'd be very interesting. And anybody else share your questions. We'll come back, and next week will be a little more politically, I think, sort of. I'm really interested. Although we actually got a lot of that from Scott's questions today. I'm interested also, Shachar, in the relationship between America and Israel. I think it's fascinating. I think it's really complicated and messed up in a lot of ways. I will just confess to all of you that I'm going to be part of a conference this week for an organization that I do support. Although I'm sure I'm going to hear from some people that I might not agree with. I'm going to the Stand With Us National Convention, which begins Thursday night. I'll only be there for part of it, but that should be a very interesting thing. I'll probably have a lot more questions from that. Think about it. And the last thing I want to share, speaking of tourism, when Doris and I and Elliot were with Shachar, all of us didn't want to leave. I mean, being in Israel, no matter how crazy things are, I had a deep desire to stay for as long as I could. It was really meaningful for me. And I'm hoping to plan a trip with Shachar in the fall at a week that I want to call Purpose-Driven Israel, which will not be a typical touristy trip, but really where we spend some time with some really wonderful, effective, boots on the ground, organizations that are doing that are trying to combat fanaticism and just make life better for all people in the country, both in the realm of environmental sustainability, refugee relief, the kinds of things that I care about in the United States, I also care about in Israel. So hopefully we'll be able to have Purpose-Driven Israel, and some of you will be able to join us. Anyway, thank you all very much for being here today. Shachar, big hand to you. And everybody, thank you for coming. I hope you'll join us again next week. Tell your friends. For those of you whose faces I can't see, I hope you were able to get something out of this, and you'll come back and share your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Sure. I loved it. I am going to make one comment that I would love to hear also different views from mine. It's not that I'm pushing an agenda. I have friends who are settlers. I have friends who are Orthodox. I listen to everybody. Hell, my dad and I disagree on most of the things, and that's a good thing. And I think we can have a great debate over everything here. I would love to be regarded as a resource and to open up debates and to talk about more and more things and to get you interested in anything you'd like to know about.
Great. So think about the question that I'm really interested in how Israelis feel about the future of Gaza, really, and also what happens. By the way, the other thing I'm wondering is if the worst happens and the West Bank is annexed, what does that actually mean? I want to know about that too. If you can think about how you would. And what that would mean for Israelis, and how many Israelis might even leave. I mean, also, what's that? I mean, this is a whole, but I'm wondering, like, at what point does somebody say this isn't my country anymore? I'm asking the same thing. I might ask the same thing for myself as an American. So I'm just really interested in opening up that conversation too. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.